The incentive in the industry is to get attention, and if you're just giving basic common sense health advice, you're not going to get the same attention.
Making sure we don't fall into another one of those people that are like, do this and you will be awesome and you will look awesome and look how we look at what we do and just like copy that and you'll be happy.
So much of it is paired with, oh, you want this physique? Eat this kind of broccoli, and it's not really the kind of golden focus that I feel like would be much more wholesome and helpful, especially to kids who are searching up this stuff. So we were very hesitant to talk about this topic because we very much dislike how, just in general, kind of the whole industry of like people who talk about health and diet and personal fitness and how kind of, I feel like it's gotten really warped just by the incentives.
You can see it really, really easily. Like, just look up healthy, like how to be healthy or healthy recipes on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And then you'll immediately see like a shirtless dude posing with his six-pack.
Me as an innocent 11-year-old was trying to figure out how to like cook some broccoli, and then there's this shirtless guy being like, here's how you cook broccoli. It's like, why do you need to be shirtless on a thumbnail when I'm just trying to cook broccoli? And it's like, I feel like that's what I'm talking about.
Cook broccoli this way and you'll get this body.
Yeah, I feel like so much of it is paired with, oh, you want this physique? Eat this kind of broccoli, and it's almost like it's not really the kind of golden focus that I feel like would be much more wholesome and helpful, especially to kids who are searching up this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we were very hesitant to talk about this topic. But at the same time, I feel like that's also a big need as to why we need to bring back a little bit more of the nuance and just the more kind of open discussion versus
but
here's
also,
the one right answer for you.
But also at the same time, just like making sure we don't fall into another one of those people that are like, do this and you will be awesome and you will look awesome and look how we look and like, look at what we do and just like copy that and you'll be happy. It's like, no, that's not really how it works. I don't think so.
Yeah, so I think we kind of wanted to talk just about our experience because I feel like when it comes to just actually trying to add value to people, like research in the health industry. One reason why this is so complicated is because you just have so many factors when it comes to your body that it's really hard to actually find quality research that says much, right? Especially because there can be so much correlation of like, oh, people who eat this rare, berry from Guatemala
maybe
tend to be like,
purple,
live 2 years longer than normal people,
or like purple sweet potato or something like that.
When it's like, okay,
like
maybe it's like generally the people who are searching out this berry are the people who are more focused on health, right? And so it's just really hard to actually find quality research. But then at the same time, I think people will also talk about their experience, like here's because this worked for me, it's going to work for you. But I feel like more what we want to talk about in terms of our experience is almost like kind of the mental journey of where our paradigm was, what the knowledge was that we had at the time, and how we kind of iterated towards a solution that was more and more ideal for ourselves and our family.
And also, I would say we generally have a pretty healthy lifestyle. And I don't know how many kids actually really think about that. And so also like how we got to this place. Obviously, our lives aren't perfect. Our, eating habits aren't always perfect. But I'd say we have a pretty decent mindset around it, and how we got to that place.
Yeah. So initially when we were very young, our parents were like, of course, when you have a baby, like we're learning this because we have baby quails and you're all like, oh my God, it's so tiny. It's a living thing. Like you feel so much like, oh my God, I need to keep this thing alive.
Obviously, it's not the same thing with baby quails that it is with humans.
It's similar. You're
similar.
still
We're
responsible
still learning
for a life, and that's a big thing. So of course, when our parents first started, when we were first born, it was very much like, here, eat some mashed boiled squash, and that was like the first foods that we were introduced to.
And obviously babies love that stuff. If they haven't been exposed to anything else.
If you don't have an alternative, you're like, wow, this is the greatest thing. When we first had like a banana or something that was like remotely sweet, it was like, wow, So I think that was something that was also, I think that was really good in terms of like, what do you first introduce in terms of, setting a good baseline.
Yeah, we generally, like, our parents are generally quite, I would say, like, when we were little, we weren't exposed to screens a lot. We spent a lot of time having organic play, we didn't have a TV in the living room. I think generally it was quite a healthy and natural lifestyle.
Yeah, but when we were pretty young. As things got a little bit more stressful in terms of like, both our parents were working, and then we were also going to school, and then our parents were just having us get school lunches, and the school lunches were just not good at all.
These were like really good schools.
Oh yeah,
really
this is like best school district in the country. And we were there, like they had these deep fried cheese sticks, and we're like, we didn't even eat those. We're
chicken
like,
tenders,
this is too much.
Nachos.
Yeah,
and
all
it's
those
like
sorts of things
that don't even look appetizing.
Honestly, in 5th grade, I literally just stopped eating lunch because I was so sick of the school lunches, and it was just like not appealing anymore.
So much so that like when mommy would literally pack me lunch, that was like a rare treat, and all she'd literally do is put some squash some dumplings
and squish it into the thermos, and then you just have this dumpling brick.
And that was
luxury,
amazing.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And
so obviously we didn't,
And I think for us, it just kind of got incrementally worse in terms of like, well, when our mom came from like rural, very poor China, where basically all you had was like rice, vegetables, and a little bit of meat, and like that was basically all you had. And then when she came,
she talks about how like when she was really little, it was like such a treat. You get a very, very thin piece of meat.
Yeah, and so of course, coming from that, when she first came to America, it was all just like the Chinese diet, and then our dad started introducing her to things like pizza. And she was like, wow, I didn't know this existed.
And orange juice.
Yeah, this is so magical. But I think for us, it was because I guess just for us as children, we weren't really thinking about it as much. Yeah. But we were just kind of like seeing things in the grocery store and like, oh, let's try this. Oh, let's try this. And then we kind of incrementally were like, now frozen microwavable pizza from Trader Joe's is a staple now. And then we're getting like frozen like French chocolate crepes and stuff, and that's what we're having for breakfast every day. And
I think definitely the low point was during the pandemic, where we would this is so embarrassing. We would get okay, whatever. Let's just put it out there for the internet to see.
The ugly truth.
The ugly truth. We would get Meat Lovers pizza with cinnamon rolls, breadsticks, and this is the worst part, a giant liter of Diet Coke.
Yeah, and we just chug it. Oh, and we would get Meat Lovers pizza so often, we just called it Carbs and Pigs, and then our mom would like be bringing out like carbs and pigs, carbs and pigs. And so it was like, it was definitely like standard American diet, not good. But actually the surprising thing probably to a lot of people is that prior to the pandemic, when I was like 8 and you were like 5, we actually spent like maybe like a year or two not having sugar.
And it was our choice though.
Yeah, it was our choice. So we went out on the deck, and our dad was listening to a podcast on like
a random day.
Random day. Yeah, he was just listening to this podcast about how like sugar is so bad, and the guy on the podcast was like talking about all the
horrible
negative effects of sugar and how it's so horrible. And Isla and I, we were just like rocking on the deck, just listening to this, and then like an hour goes by, and afterwards like, we gotta stop eating sugar.
Yeah. Mainly it was you. I was like 5.
Yeah.
So, you
were just like,
I was
we're
sort of
doing
following
this now.
along.
Yeah.
My favorite part of it was that my dad said before we quit sugar that we should have a marshmallow party.
Yeah.
I think I ate like 7 marshmallows.
I ate a lot of marshmallows.
I ate so
that
many
day.
marshmallows.
Yeah. And then, so we actually went a solid 2 years. Like when we went to birthday parties, it was funny because a mom came up to our dad and she was like, oh my God, I didn't know your children were allergic to sugar. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Because she was like, oh, it can't possibly be that this 8-year-old just doesn't eat sugar because they think it's bad.
And keep in mind, this is like candy stuff. Like,
right. Yeah.
You know, marshmallows, donuts.
But we weren't
counting calories inside
and
stuff.
we weren't even looking at the grams of sugar. So we would still have like granola bars and stuff and be like, oh, this isn't a sugar thing because we were just pretty clueless.
It was kind of just like sort of the things you would expect, like cake.
Yeah.
And
I think
parties.
part of the problem was that it wasn't really a health focus in the sense that outside of sugar, we weren't concerned with like having the other things that were like highly processed.
Yeah.
And so it still wasn't like we were really focused on health. We just thought, oh, sugar is bad. And it felt good.
It's also like the pride of I'm a little kid who doesn't eat cake.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a birthday party when I was in kindergarten or first grade. And I vividly remember being on a swing while everyone else was eating cake. And I remember feeling so proud of myself. And I'm like, hey, I have the swings all to myself. This makes so much sense. Yeah. Just don't eat cake. There you go.
Yeah. And so I think after that, we kind of started falling off the wagon with the sugar thing.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic was such a low point because we were just eating out like every single day, or I guess takeout, and then they were delivered because it was during COVID.
Yeah.
And also not much physical exercise, just kind of chilling around the house.
I remember we didn't get like fat or anything.
Yeah.
But it was just so weak and pathetic. I remember
walking up the stairs and then you're like, gotta take a moment. Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Yeah. I hope we're not the only ones who have this kind of experience during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we were pretty young, so we weren't really thinking too much about it. It was just like, oh, my legs hurt because I walked up the stairs.
Well, I do think it was kind of a turning point, like a couple years into the pandemic, like maybe a year and a half, where I kind of I made the famous short where I was talking about how I ate ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
For the longest time, I didn't really care much about what I ate and lived primarily on microwavable meals and Cocoa Puffs.
And then
one day,
felt really sick, and then I was like, there's something wrong with this. And then that's when I started to approach health a little bit more holistically,
but a little bit more
than the way that we were just like, oh, sugar bad, not do sugar. And then that's when I started getting a lot into just home cooked meals. This was kind of a point in which like I would just cook lunch for the family, and I started doing that every single day. And initially my cooking skills were very bad. Like I would just have like spinach with some sad salmon. And you would like pretend to be like, oh, thank you. But you did not enjoy that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're both sorry.
I got kind of resentful towards lunch after a while, but then it started getting really good.
So then my cooking skills started improving, and then it was not only healthy but also bearable to eat.
I remember we made some like day in the life videos, and one of them was like, you woke me up with sweet potato oatmeal.
I was going to try the oatmeal. Does it look yummy?
Mm-hmm.
I know. I
pretended to like it.
I made cauliflower hummus, and then I ate it with zucchini sticks. And I remember
we were actually eating very healthy though.
Yeah, we were. Definitely.
I remember actually kind of enjoying it.
Oh yeah,
enjoying the
I was
zucchini sticks.
I was like,
hummus.
this is great, but like today I would not eat that.
I think we were bonding a lot over like we're eating healthy, and I'm following my big sister, and I'm eating these zucchini sticks,
I feel
raw
like,
zucchini.
Yeah, I feel like part of it was that our bodies were like so deprived of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think in some sense that was what it was. Part of it I also noticed.
Okay, one thing I want to make sure is that we were not starving ourselves.
Yeah.
We were just choosing to eat. Like, I was just following along with Sumay. I'm not, I was just like, oh, Sumay's eating this. It's not that bad,
I think part of it was also, in some sense, it's kind of laziness in terms of like if I were to cook something for lunch, then it's like more effort to go make something else. So
I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
yeah. So I think that part of it was also just like in terms of trying to approach it more holistically, and actually building the skills. I noticed that it really was a big process of like resetting our taste buds because we were so used to the like
meat lovers pizza with a liter
and now
of
when
Diet
I eat
Coke.
those things I'm like, oh my god, like it literally just makes me feel sick, like it's not even really appealing anymore. So there was definitely a big process of like being able to reset our baseline for those things, but I feel like now we're in a better place than then, because I think at least for myself, I was getting a little bit more of just kind of like demonizing unhealthy food and just wouldn't have it ever. Like if we were going to a restaurant and like the Italian restaurant. Yeah, recently we would go very rarely, but even when we rarely went, I would like, oh yeah, I'll just eat beforehand or I'll pack something.
Yeah,
and that
you
was
wouldn't,
something
like,
that
have
was
smoothies.
Yeah, that was something that was like definitely very extreme.
I remember we were on a trip not too long ago, and I was so happy when you said, oh yeah, I'll get a smoothie.
Yeah, so
and I was like, yes, somebody's enjoying smoothies with me.
And there was definitely a period of time where I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna be totally disciplined and I'm never gonna have these things ever.
Yeah.
And it was also at a point where I felt like because I had that mindset, my body wasn't like craving those things either, because it was kind of like, oh, that's a bad thing now.
Yeah.
But I feel like that it was also kind of like not really the best thing, because it was also
yeah.
I think that part of it is that you want to balance the enjoyment, and I think this kind of relates to, we've been talking a lot about like the conscious and the subconscious mind, and how the conscious mind is very limited in terms of processing power, but it's the only thing that you're aware of. And you have this subconscious that essentially speaks through emotion, and it's where people talk about like intuition or instinct, and that's when it comes to like the subconscious mind, which actually can process way more than the conscious mind. And when it comes to the subconscious, I feel like part of what it is that it kind of it's trying to keep you alive, and so you have all these evolutionary instincts of like, oh, now you should go eat, and then it like triggers hunger and those sorts of things. And also is like, I think that when you get in tune with your subconscious, it also helps you to know like when do you need movement or when do you need rest, and those sorts of things are all signals that your body gives you that comes from the subconscious, because it's the one that's really there trying to keep you alive and keeping all the systems running.
But also if you're always being exposed to things like meat lovers pizza every day, then your subconscious is not going to be super helpful, because it's used to those things. It's going to be saying, oh, you should eat a Snicker bar now. You should drink. Once I ate so many cinnamon rolls, I literally threw up. It was not a good day. It was one of those meat lovers pizza days, and we got cinnamon rolls, and I had one too many. But anyway, it's like my subconscious was telling me, go ahead, and I think that's when you need to find a balance, because I think one thing that really, really annoys me when I tell people about, like, we've got a sugar diet where basically I only have 12 treats a year of like these sugary treats.
Right.
Like marshmallows, cake, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I generally try to avoid things that have added sugar. And people will say, like, when I tell them, like adults, they'll be like,
why are you restricting yourself?
Why are you restricting yourself?
Do you have an eating disorder or
Yeah,
something?
I think they immediately jump to the sort of
conclusion
that I just like I want a swimmer's body. It's like, no, I want to eat healthy, and sugar does not make me feel very good. And most importantly, because my baselines for my taste buds are at this point, I really, really enjoy the healthy desserts that I make for myself just as much as I would enjoy something like a store-bought thing with like tons of sugar and fat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm losing anything. In fact, I think I'm gaining a lot. Like, I'll make this healthy mini apple pie where I've made this like homemade crust, and I have some of it in the freezer so that I can put in apples. I put in some cinnamon. I put on the little crust. I bake it, and then you can make homemade whipped cream with only like a little bit of honey in it. But because there's a lot of fat in it, then the fat
tastes really good.
It tastes really good.
Yeah.
And then you put a little cinnamon. It literally tastes like a store-bought apple pie with ice cream, except there's barely any added sugar, and it's just natural whole ingredients.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really enjoy that.
That's why I think there's a balance in terms of, one, making sure that you have intention, because if you're just purely being driven by the subconscious primes you to be like, you should eat that ice cream, right? You're going to get those things, especially because we're living in a world where it's like, you know, Bill Burr has a stand-up comedy where he's like, you can smell KFC from 20 miles away, but you have an apple right under your nose. You can't smell it, right? And you're like wandering on the side of the road. Ooh, that KFC? You know, it's like these things are very engineered to sell and to get you addicted to those kinds of foods. So
like
it's definitely
Popeye's
very hard.
Biscuits.
Yeah, and they're definitely, you know, they've done an incredible job in terms of getting the masses of people to just, you know, want to eat it, and they've been very successful at that. But I feel like that's the reason why you really need that intention in order to, one, be able to enjoy food and be able to listen to your body, and so that you are kind of in tune with those sorts of things, where I feel like in the past I wasn't, and I think I was very negatively influenced by some of the people who are out there kind of demonizing, here's what you need to do, otherwise you won't be healthy.
And also throwing out arbitrary numbers for like calories, protein, you know, especially with like some of these bodybuilders of like, you need 500 grams of protein a day, you know, and it's like,
I do think that there's the incentive in the industry is to get attention, and if you're just giving basic common sense health advice, you're not going to get the same attention as people who are saying, hey, you know, if you eat this, then you're going to die early or something. You know, like, obviously there's a disconnect in terms of the incentive in actually helping people, and that's why I feel like for us, we want to try to iterate to a better place in terms of, one, how to actually fight against a lot of the negative culture that is surrounding the sort of health industry, and to not think of it as an industry, because I think it should really be about I think that if I were to say, like, what's the ideal search page for if somebody just, like, let's say as a kid they never thought about health and they want to start becoming healthy, and they just type into Google, how can I be healthier, that what would come up is just kind of some basic principles and some basic information, but most importantly, supportive community and people who can share their experiences and listen and be open-minded, but then also have people come together to help you build motivation and intrinsic, you know, kind of reward of doing these things. And I feel like, and also if you were to actually
enjoying food as well, and enjoying these natural ingredients.
And I feel like that would be kind of like the perfect curated answer, and I feel like it's unfortunate that instead they get a cascade of misinformation and
you
things that
need to
provoke
chug ginger
fear.
Juice every single day.
And just there's
just so many things out there.
A whole waterfall of things that you just don't need in your life, and that's part of the reason why we're building our own platform, is that you do need to be able to shape these things in your life. Otherwise, you're going to be influenced negatively. But to try to intentionally do that all by yourself is really difficult, and that's why we're trying to make it easier.